Hello, my name is Stephanie, and I'm delighted to introduce this teacher interview series. We're really lucky to have heard from four great teachers. We've got Abby from South Africa, we've got James from the UK, we've got Holly from the UK, and we've got Jake from the US. They will be sharing with you their various experiences of teaching in Shenzhen and with TLE. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or the TLE team. We'd be delighted to help and support you in your journey to considering teaching in China. So just to start things off then, perhaps you could give us a very brief introduction to yourself and your background as well.
Absolutely. My name is Jake Krutzik. I grew up in America, more specifically Southern California, a small county called Orange County, just south of Los Angeles. I went to university at the University of Southern California. I majored in international business and minored in Chinese for the professions. I grew up surfing, hiking, riding dirt bikes, really outdoor type lifestyle. And clearly, after a couple years of work post-grad, I elected to come to China through Opportunity China initially. And then I landed with Talent E in Shenzhen. And I'm 27 years old.
Okay, fantastic. What was the thing that sort of sparked you to think, actually, now's the right time to do this? I really want to go and spend a bit of time living in China.
Right. I think there are a lot of interesting aspects of living in China, living in Shenzhen, that are really motivating to make this, lifestyle choice. I think, of course, studying the language, being exposed to the culture, things like that made this journey the most seamless for me. It made it make the most sense, as opposed to moving to a different Asian country, European country, etc. Assuming that living abroad is a non-negotiable, but yeah, the exposure to the language and the exposure to the culture definitely made this move the final decision and made it make the most sense in terms of what I wanted to do post-grad.
Mm-hmm. And has Shenzhen sort of met your expectations? Has it exceeded it? Is there what's been your experiences like of the city? Because again, I think it's absolutely huge, isn't it? But many people have never really heard of Shenzhen. So what's your experience been like?
I didn't know a ton about it, so having that base layer of confidence that it was some level of significance made me confident enough to consider it and then choose it. And then once I chose it, I did a bunch of research on social media, online, etc. And based on all my research, I saw that it was a very new city. It developed very recently, I think within the past 30, 40 years-ish.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, what has been created out of a village.
Totally. And it's so technologically advanced. The buildings and the skyline is littered with LED, so high tech. It has that, for lack of a better term, cyberpunk feel. It's totally something out of a sci-fi movie, particularly at night. It's breathtaking to walk around or drive around in a car and see that skyline. I remember when I first came, I actually moved to a different district than a lot of my friends, but I would take that taxi from my district over to theirs, and it was about 25 minutes, and the whole time my face was glued to the window, just looking at the skyline, taking it all in, and feeling so grateful.
Yeah, it is impressive. I don't know how many years they've done that light show now, but it's pretty sort of mind-blowing to watch. It sounds like lots of opportunities to have a fairly vibrant lifestyle, kind of being out and about a lot. And you touched there on friends, which was going to be my next question. How have you been able to sort of build that network of friends, associates, people you know, that you can socialize with, and have that sort of family away from home.
Absolutely. You can meet any type of friends, community that you want out here, really. I think if you want to stay in the expat scene, you can totally do that. I met friends immediately through my agency, through my work. And when you go out to restaurants, clubs, whatever you find yourself doing, you see another foreigner and you both look at each other kind of like, hey, what are you doing here? What brought you here? How it's a quick, easy conversation starter. So everyone's receptive to it. What's your story? And especially if you are a social person and a friendly person, everybody's eager to hear what brought you to Shenzhen and start some sort of relationship, friendship. That's something that's very important in Chinese culture, keeping good friendships. And luckily, that doesn't stop with the locals. It extends to the expat and foreigner scene as well. Everyone's looking to build a community and have that kind of network to help you in any way you want.
It's good to hear. So it's been a bit of a combination then of people that you've met through work and Talent E, but also being quite proactive in terms of building those connections in your community and other expats as well. I wanted to move on to the process of moving to China and also your job. Of course, you're a teacher. So how did Talent E support you in terms of actually getting to China and that initial quite tricky period sometimes of being in a different country for your sort of first week? Yeah, what did they do in terms of that support process from before you went to China right through to maybe your second, third week onwards?
Gotcha. So if I can, I'll start right at when I signed. So right when I signed the contract, one thing I can say about Townie from the second I signed to now is that they are available constantly. I've never waited more than a few minutes for a response from them in some way. Some problems are bigger than others, etc. But never do you feel like you're alone in any step of the process. And that is, one of the truest representations of this agency. They are there for you no matter what. And they respond to you. I mean, I can't stress it enough so quickly. It's outstanding. So right when I signed, it was years ago, and I was just coming out of a basic corporate job. So I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was using their directions to the best of my ability. I just knew I wanted to get to China some way, and they would help me do it. So I worked with them to acquire the visa. There was a consulate right in LA. So I was in a very big city. So getting that Z visa initially, and that was very easy. I didn't have to travel. Some people have to travel from Texas to Chicago, in America at least. So I was lucky to have all of the resources I needed right by me. And they made every process about as clear as they could have. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know about the process at all. So there's going to be some things lost in translation as a result of my own ignorance. But without them, I would not have been able to do it, at least not in a timely manner, at least not as smoothly. And gosh, they were so efficient. And anytime I had a problem, I would message them at any time of the day. And mostly when I was awake, which means they're asleep. It's a 16-hour time difference. And they were so great making me feel supported and also keeping me in line when deadlines were coming up. They'd say, you need to make sure this gets done at this time. And not only did they motivate me, they kept me on track, and the process was done efficiently. I didn't really have any hiccups at all, actually. I personally had to get a new passport because mine expired, I think, 5 months after I arrived, and it needs to be valid for an extended period of time. So I had an issue there, again, to no one's fault other than my own. But everything else was very smooth. The way I transitioned out of work and the timeline they let me know was all very convenient for me. I think for the most part, TLE has some high motivation and getting everyone here, getting everyone settled and making everyone feel supported. So generally, the reports that I hear back from all the other members of the agency are very positive, especially in terms of getting here.
Yeah.
Now, upon departure, I had everything sorted. I had my visa, or my Z visa, one-time entry, and all packed. I'm ready to go. I get to the airport, get on the plane, and by the time I reached my first layover, I had a full itinerary of what was going to happen. And they told me that they'd pick me up here at this point, and a really good structure and timeline explaining when everything's going to happen. So I got on a plane from Taiwan to Shenzhen. I landed, and they told me everything down to the smallest details of how much money I need to take out. And I landed in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong currency, exactly how much I need for the taxi to get to, Futian checkpoint, all the smallest details to make sure that there are no hiccups. And I got in a taxi, and right when I arrived, there was Jian waiting for me for I don't even know how long. I was so new. I thought I had arrived, and he got there, I think, 30 or 45 minutes earlier than I did. But of course, prepared like they are, and he always is. And right when I stepped through the gates into Shenzhen, he was there, and we got into a taxi, got all my luggage, helped me with my luggage, and we got into a taxi and went straight to a big welcome lunch. So my case was a little bit different because of exit strategies from my old role and just the timing of my visa, my passport, and everything. I actually came slightly later than what would be considered ideal. They wanted to give people, I think, 7 to 10 days to arrive, settle, adjust, find apartments, and get through all of this sort of admin that you need to get through when you first get here, bank accounts, stuff like that. So I had a bit of a rushed experience. It definitely wasn't overwhelming by any means, but I think it's important to keep in mind that my perspective is just a little bit different. Either way, very supported. They took care of me through the whole process. Right as I arrived, I went to a welcome lunch with all my luggage, full meal with in America, we call them a lazy Susan.
Oh, yeah.
A wheel with plates and the food. And straight from the lunch, I went to the hotel, dropped off my luggage, and then had some admin to do. They had to take pictures for TLE's own personal needs. I had to open a bank account, get a SIM card, a new phone, all the things you do right when you move to China. And I did it all, I think, in 2 days. I think by the second day, I was at my school for the first prep day. Everyone welcomed me, but from point A to point B, C, D, E, F, G, Talani was there holding my hand, making sure everything was okay.
And how about your apartment? So I know that you've been in Shenzhen for over a year now, so maybe you don't remember too much of the ins and outs, but how did that work? Just briefly, did you go and see a number of apartments? You had a budget in mind. You obviously had an accommodation allowance as part of your role. Just briefly, what was that process like?
Absolutely. So LA is very expensive, very difficult to find suitable apartment. So when I came to Shenzhen, everything was okay. I was used to a very different type of apartment hunt lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. So coming to Shenzhen, rent is cut in half, at least right off the bat, at least coming from LA. In a lot of cases, even less. You can find apartments for a couple $100 US dollars a month, and you can find really expensive, really nice apartments for the price range goes all the way to the tippy top. But in terms of what the majority of people would be looking for, you can find very nice apartments, very convenient apartments for very cheap. At least in my perspective, I noticed that was a huge difference from LA. And, I did a little bit of research before coming to Shenzhen. I had an idea of, what districts were what and where I thought all the expats were hanging out and, where would be the most vibrant social scene. And, the agency will advise you, but they certainly won't control you into making any sort of decision. You are new and you truly don't know what you're talking about, but they let you make the decisions that you insist upon. And I thought I want to live in this district because this is where all the foreigners are, and this is where everything is happening. And
Mhm.
I quickly realized I should have listened to my agency. I had a great apartment, and my experience was awesome, but it was far from my work, and I knew that, and I still said, okay. I insisted upon it actually. So again, my own fault, but just a lesson learned. You can find really, really inexpensive apartments, and mine was inexpensive compared to LA, but still quite expensive for Shenzhen. So I think it's super easy to find what you're looking for, but it's also super important to think about a commute of 35 minutes on the metro every day doesn't seem like that much. It's half an hour. I'll read a book. Early in the morning, it's a lot. And then after work, it's a lot every day for a year. You want to stay close to work. And if you're close to work and you have friends at work and you have friends in that area, your agencies in that area, your friends live in that area too. So I think making that commute more convenient was something that I learned very quickly, but certainly had no issues finding apartments, certainly had no issues, worried about not being able to pay for my apartment or issues with landlords, anything. The process was seamless and easy and comfortable, but little tweaks here and there that just come with experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really good information there. I think, as you say, sometimes it's easy to get blindsided by what you think you want to do and what you think is going to be good. And then actually with experience, realising that maybe it's best to live somewhere else. So that's really helpful.
I never once doubted my decision. I never once considered going home or going back to America. I really felt like I got right into it immediately and I never looked back.
Yeah, fantastic. And then just to finish, I wanted to talk a bit about your job because you're a teacher, but your background, you majored in international business, you then went and worked in a corporate role. So the transition to being a teacher is an interesting one. So, yeah, can you tell us again, just briefly, about the school that you work in and the English teaching job that you're now doing?
Absolutely. So I work at a kindergarten in Fujian. The age ranges, I think, from around 3 years old all the way to 6 years old. Very young kids.
Mm.
And typically they want teachers to start at a younger level and then work their way up and stay with them for an extended period of time to really make the best use of their English studying. And you can really build a really great connection with the kids. Initially, when I first came to China, I wanted to get here. I wanted to practice Chinese. I wanted to do something unique. I wanted to see this part of the world. It's very inconvenient for Americans to get over here. So truly, this was a whole new world for me.
Mm.
So I had a lot of things going on. I had a lot of priorities, a lot of incentives to come to China, a lot of boxes ticked. The teaching aspect of it was something I was excited for. I definitely saw a lot of value in experience with young kids. I think that's something that's so important for young men and then a bit older men. It's important when starting family, you have experience with young kids and you know how to interact with them and be supportive of them. It's just really valuable life experience being comfortable around really little kids. I think, at least in my world, a lot of my friends and colleagues, it's a little bit foreign working and interacting with little kids. And it's truly, in more ways than one, a different language. Literally for me in China, different language, but operating with kids seamlessly and bringing out that engagement and that cooperation with them is it's not an easy task. It's a skill that's learned. And I think that was a huge thing for me. So I saw a lot of positives that came from it, and I didn't really have any objections. So I arrived, began teaching, and I arrived here when I was 25. So I had a bit of a learning curve adjusting to work, a new job. I came from corporate world. I signed a year contract. So I was prepared to really look for some personal growth. And there were a lot of adjustments that needed to be made, and adjusting to new work style, new work environment, new job, career path, etc. was one of those. But all of the Chinese teachers so supportive, all of the management so supportive, the foreign teachers so supportive. So I think for a month or two, I felt comfortable, settled, like I had a secure spot at my school, had really built a name of sorts for myself. I had gained some respect, putting in the hard work, establishing lessons plans, etc., building a good relationship with my teachers that I work with every day and the parents. So important. They really allow you to feel that sense of security. The kids like you, the parents like you, and the teachers you work with like you. Your life is a piece of cake. So you just have to be a sponge when you get there. You need to accept criticism. There are some cultural differences, some language differences that make, I think, news or criticism feel a bit harsh. Chinese people are very honest and very to the point. So you just need to be aware that you're in a different country and you're a foreigner, I guess, for lack of a better term. You're a guest, and you need to adjust to the way of life here rather than trying to reshape everyone's life who lives here and operates here and has a whole family here and all their culture here. You are the one that needs to adapt. So being receptive, having a good attitude, being positive, being nice, being friendly are all really good things to keep in mind when wanting to make something like this work. You just need to keep your head up and keep pushing forward. You're gonna feel times of stress, as with any job, and times of overcoming obstacles. But that attitude and that this is a big adventure, this is something so different, and I expected this. I'm up for the challenge, and having that mindset makes it a lot easier. And it's something that I think all of the Chinese teachers and management, they're looking for. That's what they want. There are a lot of different types of people and types of teachers that come into this industry. So having that type of mentality is exactly what makes your life and their life so much easier. But regardless, they're really friendly, very helpful, very supportive, very fair, and just very, very kind in general. My responsibilities are homeroom teacher. So I'm with the kids all day. I teach twice a day with an outdoor activity type lesson, which is a hybrid course, if you will. But once you get in the swing of things, I could teach all day. I really like interacting with the kids. I have a relationship with them. So I think coming to China, you're looking at each school. It's, I only teach one time here, and but I teach 45 minutes twice at this school. You look at all the minor details when I think you should look beyond, the bare minimum requirements. Like I said, I could sit with those kids in a circle all day and teach them anything beyond English, talk with them, and just use that relationship to just have those conversations truly for an entire day. I don't feel any sort of exhaustion or lack of endurance to be able to handle that. Right when you get here, you need to adjust to the schedule and teaching and working with kids. But once you get a grasp on that, it is so fun to look at each one of these kids and listen to what they have to say. And there's no stress to, I have to create such a perfect lesson and I hope everything falls into place. You feel like it's not just that they're these children that you're teaching, they're truly little people with all their personalities. It's a relationship. It isn't teacher students type feeling for me anymore. I really feel like they understand me and I understand them, and they're very easy to work with after you get that understanding. And the parents, everything with their parents and the teachers, once you get into that groove, it's truly such a fun role. And I think one of your questions on the sheet was, how's their behavior? How are the kids in general? And they're kids, I think some teachers, especially if you come from an elementary school or even a high school background, they come in and they have this expectation of really intense respect. We just got a new teacher from a different school or a different agency. And we've had other teachers like this who they just have a slightly different expectation of what they're getting into. These are young kids. They're so young and They're so new to the world, and it truly is more of a relationship rather than a strict domineering approach. But, of course, times when you have to be strict and maintain the rules, just like any teaching position. But I'd say relative to kids in America, and I've had my one class and the kids at my school as experience, they're very bright, very reasonable, very sweet kids. It's important to still be, realistic about what's happening, but to also understand that it is truly a bit different from maybe what you may expect from America, UK. They're very respectful, sweet kids. And they, once you're with them for a couple weeks, they love you and they look up to you and they ask you all sorts of questions. They'll talk your ear off and they really look to you for support throughout their entire day. So as far as behavioral concerns, etc., in that department, I think the need for concern is extremely low.
Oh, well, that was a really detailed answer there, Jake, but really insightful in terms of it sounds like the role has been very rewarding for you, despite being very different to what you've been used to previously. And also what you were saying about cultural differences and having to adapt to a different culture, be respectful. That's something to bear in mind, isn't it, with almost all aspects of life when you move to a different country. So that's some really, really good advice that you had there. So thank you very much.